The last class continuation, variables. The variables are used to the variables are used to store the data for future use or future purpose. In object-oriented mechanism, in object-oriented mechanism, the variables can be categorized into three types. First one is static or class variables. Second one is non-static or instance variables. And third one is local or method variables. Static are class variables, non-static are instance variables, local are method variables. We can define a variables. We can define a variables within the class and above the methods are constructors, methods and constructors definitions. We can define a variables within the class and above the method or constructor definitions. The type of variables are called static or class variables. We can define a variables within the class and above the methods and the constructors definitions. The type of variables are called static or class variables. Static or class variables. Next one, the static variables. Static variables to allocate the memory space at only once. The static variables to allocate the memory space at only once. Okay. Next one, the data which is changing from, or which data is changing is common for, which data is common for all the objects of a class, all the objects of a class, data represented as static. Which data is common for all the objects of a class, the data represented as a static variables. The data represented as a static variables. Next one, we can access the static variables. We can access the static variables within the methods. In the methods by using class name. By using class name, we can access the static variables within the methods or static variables data within the methods by using class name. We can access the static variables data from outside of that class, by using class name, or reference variable. We can access the static variables data from outside of that class by using class name or reference variable. Completed. I'm taking as a class student. Next one, I'm defining one method, college underscore info. Observing very clearly, we can define the variables within the class and above the method definitions. Now here we can defining a variables. The type of variables are called static variables. Now here I am taking as a college underscore address or college underscore name. College underscore address. Okay. Next one, these static variables, memory allocation only one time. The static variables are executed only one time at the execution of the class. Next one, which type of data we can assigning? The data is common for all the objects of the class. That means for suppose this is a student class, I am creating a number of students, student to one object, student to two object, up to student to n object. These n number of students, this data is common, college name and college address. Okay, that type of data we can represent it as a static variables. Okay, in our program or in our class, which data is common for all the objects of a class, that data we can represent it as static variables. Next one, we can access the static variables data within the methods by using class name. Print of student to dot college underscore name, print of student to dot college underscore address. Next one, I am creating one object for student class. I am calling method s1 dot college underscore info. From outside the class, I am trying to access this static variables data. How to access? By using class name is possible or reference variable. Print of our class name is student dot college underscore name, print of student dot college underscore address. Next one, print of s1 dot college underscore name, print of s1 dot college underscore address. Okay. Okay, this is outside the class. Outside the class, we can access the static variables by using class name or by using reference variable. But within the method, we can access only class name. Next one, non-static are instance variables. We can define a variable within the methods. In the methods, within the methods, by using default parameter name, self. The type of variables are called non-static variables. We can define a variables within the methods or constructor. Constructor also we are using. Later we'll discussing constructors. We can define a variables within the method or constructor by using default parameter name. The type of variables are called non-static variables. Next one, the non-static variables, memory allocation. The non-static variables memory allocation is depends on the non-static variables memory allocation is depends on number of objects we are created. The non-static variables memory allocation is depends on number of objects we are created. For suppose we are creating one object, in that case, one time memory allocation. One time memory allocation. Two objects, two times memory allocation. Two times memory allocation. Three objects, three times memory allocation. Up to so on. Objects I am created n times memory allocated. The non-static variables memory allocation is depends on number of objects we are created. But static variables to allocating the memory space at only one time. Next one, which data is changing from one object to other object. Which data is changing from one object to another object. The type of data we are represented as non-static variables. Non-static variables. Which data is changing from one object to another object. That type of data we are represented as non-static variables. Which data is changing from one object to another object. The type of data we are represented as non-static variables. Okay. Next one, we can access the non-static variables data. We can access the non-static variables data within the methods, the help of default parameter, like as a self. We can access the non-static variables data within the methods with the help of default parameter. Okay. Next one, we can access the non-static variables data from outside the class, by using reference variable. Reference variable. Now observing very clearly, class student. Now I am defining one method, student underscore info self. Okay, observing very clearly, what is the non-static variable? We can define a variables within the methods or constructors by using default parameter name. What is the default parameter? Self is a default parameter. With the help of self, within the method or constructor, we can defining the variables. This type of variables are called non-static variables. Self dot student name. Next one, we can access the non-static variables within the method by using default parameter name. Print of self dot student name. Now I'm creating student class object. Next one, s1 dot method I am calling student underscore info. Next one, s1 dot, which one? I want to access the SID. SID, that value I want to print it. Next one, print of s1 dot sname. Okay, observing very clearly, these are the non-static variables. The non-static variables memory allocation is depends upon the number of objects we are created. Next one, the non-static variables data is changing from one object to another object. Next one, we can access the non-static variable within the method with the help of default parameter name self or outside the class with the help of reference variable. Next one, local variables or method variables. local variables or method variables. We can define a variables. We can define a variables within the method. Within the method directly. We can define a variables within the methods directly. Within the methods directly. The type of variables are called local or method variables. We can define a variables within the methods directly. The type of variables are called local or method variables. Local or method variables. Next one, we can access the local variables data. Local variables data within that particular method only. Within that particular method only. Okay. We can access the local variables data within that particular method only. Now observing very clearly class test. Here I am defining x variable def m1 of self. Here self dot y equal to 20, z equal to 30. This is a which variable? Static variable. This is a which variable? Non-static. This is a local variable. Now print of test.x, print of self.y, and print of z. Now I am defining one more method, m2. In that m2, we can access the static property test.x, print of self.y, but we cannot access the z value. Now t1 equal to test class t1.m1 and t1.m2. Observing very clearly. First one, our test class is executed. Now then immediately control will go to this is a which statement, object creation. In the memory location, one object is created. Now control go to this statement. This is a which statement, method calling m1. Control go to m1 definition. Now to allocate the memory space for non-static variable and local variable, test.x value is printed. X value 10 is printed and y value 20 is printed and the z value 30 is printed. Next method execution is over. Control will go to from here to here. The next statement of the previous M1 calling. What is the next statement? What is the next statement? This is also method calling. Which method? M2. Control go to from here to here. Now this method logic execution is started. Test.x value is printed 10. Self.y value is printed 20. But here we can getting the error message. Then immediately control will go to here to here. Here don't return any logic, stop the execution. That is the execution.
Sir, one doubt here.
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, we are creating a static variable x equal 10 on above M1 method.
Yeah.
So is it possible to create any other static variable above M2 method?
Yeah, we can define the M2 also, above the M2. But that M2, that X variable, we cannot access the M1 method.
Okay, so that is static for only M2 method.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
if we,
static means that data is common for all the objects and all the methods. If you want to use that that data in all the methods.
okay, so the standard rule is so static variable should be created above all the methods after the class name.
Then only we can access that variable in all the methods. Otherwise, we cannot access all the methods.
Okay, if we want to access only to a specific method, then we can create that static above that method
Yeah,
only.
we can access the specific method. Don't go for the static.
Okay.
Simply, we can define the local variable. That method we can access only. Generally, in the static variables, which type of data is common for all the objects, the type of data should be represented as a static variables. Z is a local. The scope of Z variable is only within the M1. We cannot access the M2.
Okay, if we'll print in M1, then it will print, but not in M2.
Yeah, the scope of Z is only within the M1, where we can defining only that particular. That's why we are calling as a method variable.
Okay.
We are observing very clearly. Whenever we are calling M2 method, control go to M2 definition. In that M2 definition, where we are getting the error message, print of Z statement. That is a line number 12. Okay, where we are getting the error message, line number 12 in M2. Whenever M2 method is executed, whenever we are calling M2 method, where is the defining? That is a line number 15. Okay. Now observing very clearly. For suppose here I am defining one more static variable, a equal to 200. Now test dot a. Okay. Observing very clearly, we can access this A, M2, but we cannot access M1. For suppose here I am trying to print off test.a. Here also we can access because this is a class. Okay, you are observing very clearly x and a are the which variables? Static variables. Next one, observing very clearly these two variables to allocate the memory space. Whenever you are calling M1, before calling the M1 method, already we can defining the which one? Which one? A variable. We can access the A variable. For suppose without defining A, here directly I am using A. If you don't know, we can define the A variable. Now I am defining the A variable here. Next again I am using A variable here. For suppose I am calling this method locally self.m1 method I am calling. For suppose M1 I am calling, again we will get the message M1 missing one required positional argument. For suppose I am passing any one value. Now again which one? str object no attribute y. What is the y? Which one?
Non-static and
Defining
integer.
self. Okay, we are not allocating the which one? I am not creating any object. Okay, generally we can defining anywhere, but this is a meaningless without defining a. Here I am using a. Next one, for suppose here I am defining c equal to 300. Again we can using c here, no problem. But at the time of implementation, we can defining all the static variables definition at the beginning of the class. After starting the class, we can defining the static variables. After that, we can defining the methods and constructors. Print of test dot c. Again, c value we are fetching. Okay. Okay, we can defining how many static variables we want to using. These are all the static variables we can defining in this position. After starting the class, above the method definitions. Next one, observing very clearly. Write this example. Now these two are the static. These two are the non-static. Observing very clearly, this data is common for all the student objects. But here, this type of data is changing from one student to another student. Okay, non-static variables always representing changing data, one object to another object. But static variable, that is a common data. Write this example. These two variables are called static. These two variables are called non-static. Completed. Static and non-static. Okay, whenever we can define the non-static variables within the method, in that situation, the non-static variables memory allocation is depends upon the number of times we are calling a method. Okay, next class I'm explaining that problem. To overcome that problem, to introducing one more concept, that concept is called constructors. Okay, we can define the non-static variables within the method. We are facing some problem. To overcome that problem by using the concept called constructors. Next class, I am explaining what is that problem and how to overcome that problem.